You know, I love my prospects. I love talking about the 2020 NHL Entry Draft. Last year, I loved talking about the 2019 NHL Entry Draft. And 2 years ago, I loved talking about 2018. So, it's why I made the Why I Want series in general. That's a series where we talk about the prospects on the upcoming draft, but that was always focused on a Vancouver Canucks point of view. Because I am from Vancouver, I am living here, and this is the main hockey team that I do follow. But Why I Want has kind of changed this year. We are focusing more on the prospect rather than the relationship that they could have with the Canucks if the Canucks drafted them. So we're making this video today about the Canadiens, which is not the Canucks, but because the Montreal Canadiens have gone down this really weird path where they have just tied their modern-day franchise record of straight losses in a row with 8. It's actually kind of funny because the record that they tied was actually set earlier this season. So if you let that sink in for a little bit, the Montreal Canadiens have had 2 separate losing streaks of 8 games each in one season. And we're only halfway through the year. So, the way things are shaping up, a lot of Habs fans are really upset, and understandably so. And a lot of them are actually talking about the draft and the upcoming 2020 NHL Entry Draft, which will be in Montreal and which will feature some really, really good, talented names. Now, the problem here is that the Montreal Canadiens aren't necessarily a lottery team. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not in the playoffs, but they're not necessarily one of the lowest teams in the NHL. So when it comes to that whole first overall, second overall, third overall discussion, the Canadiens aren't necessarily the team that pops out on the list as the team with the highest odds. So, I thought it'd be interesting to take a look today at some prospects in the 2020 NHL Entry Draft that the Canadiens could use, could benefit from, how they would do that, and just some guys overall that I like that I know a lot of Habs fans are liking a lot too. So, obviously, let's start things off with the first big fish here, Alexis Lafrenière, because he is a Quebec talent. He is going to be drafted in Montreal because that's where the draft is going to be held. And Canadiens fans are always saying it. They've been bringing it up a lot. Dernier for Lafrenière. And if you don't know what that means, dernier means behind. Well, not like literally behind, like as in I'm behind you, but like you're behind, if you know what I mean. So, Lafrenière is a player who has the potential to be drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. He will be drafted first overall, and the Canadiens do have a chance of getting that first overall pick. With every loss, with every team that climbs above them, the Canadiens have a higher odd towards getting that first overall pick. But at the moment, obviously the teams that have the highest odds at getting Lafrenière, it's the Ottawas, it's the Detroits, it's the etceteras, it's not Montreal. But let's talk about how Lafrenière would benefit the Montreal Canadiens. He would do that immediately. He will do that by coming into the NHL next season and becoming an immediate top 6 left winger. I don't care who the Canadiens have on their left wing spot that time, whether it's Tatar or whatever, whether it's Drouin, Lafrenière will come here and he will become equal to these players. He will come into this league, get up to 50 points in his first year, and he will totally dominate things offensively with some flair, with some flash, with some skill, with some really good playmaking, some really good hockey IQ, and he will take the roof off of this building. Lafrenière will be the first legitimately French star the Canadiens would have had ever since, take your pick. Charles Hudon, probably, right? That's a great pick for that discussion. But seriously, though, Lafrenière will have the potential to become one of the greatest Habs to have suited up in this modern generation that does happen to also be French. We've seen a lot of these guys before. Jean Boulevot, Maurice Richard, Guy Lafleur. You can take these names and add Alexis Lafrenière to that list, because Lafrenière is going to be a franchise talent. He will define the franchise, and it's not even close. McDavid is to Edmonton as Matthews is to Toronto, as Lafrenière would be to Montreal. That number one star will come to Montreal. That's no disrespect to Nick Suzuki. That's no disrespect to Cole Caulfield, because these guys have the potential to become elite players too. But Lafrenière is in a class of his own, and coming over to Montreal, he will become a player who, by the time he's in his prime, he legitimately has 100-point potential. I could say he has 110-point potential, and that's really, really crazy. It's been touted for years. Lafrenière is a game changer. Lafrenière knows how to play hockey. Lafrenière dominated the World Juniors at 18 years old. He's a great player, and he will come over to Montreal and dominate immediately. For the long term, it's a potentially game-changing, franchise-defining player. But obviously, that's not guaranteed. So let's go over to some other prospects that could be drafted in this year's draft that the Canadiens might be able to get their hands on. Let's talk about Quinton Byfield, because he is number 2. I haven't actually made a Why I Want video on Quinton Byfield yet, but that is indeed in the works. So Quinton Byfield coming over to Montreal would be really interesting, because the Canadiens already have 2 legitimately elite potential centers in their system, Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And I don't want to see any comments saying, oh, Kotkaniemi sucks this year. No. We're not talking about this year, we're talking about the long term. Suzuki, he's got that ceiling. Kotkaniemi, he has that ceiling. Quinton Byfield, in my opinion, has a higher ceiling than both of these guys. Byfield exhibits that same Evgeny Malkin-type playstyle, where he's a big body who just knows how to control the game at will. And it's not even with his size that he's able to do that. Byfield is able to do that with his skill, his skating, his playmaking, and his offensive IQ. Quinton Byfield is this weird player that exhibits all the frameworks of an elite power forward, but plays like a skilled playmaker who can score some pretty nice goals once in a while too. He plays like a dangler, and he plays like a lethal offensive IQ player, but he's got the frame of a power forward. If Byfield gets drafted to the Canadiens 2nd or maybe even 3rd overall, and yeah, I will say 3rd overall because that's a very controversial idea, but it's something that I should talk about, then the Canadiens all of a sudden have what looks to become one of the best center cores in the NHL, give it a few years. And Suzuki, Kotkaniemi, Byfield could totally change things upon their head, because Byfield will play in the NHL next year, and he will be just absolutely dominant. Add Philip Deneau, and you have yourself a team that honestly has a whole bunch of players on center that you probably should move to the wing just to fit them in your system, because Byfield is just that. He is really, really skilled. And I'll tell you right now, Byfield will get the Why I Want video treatment soon, just so I could broaden this up to a wider audience. But for now, just for this video, taking a look at Lafrenière and Byfield and how they could affect the Habs, both of these players will be absolute game changers. Immediately in their first NHL seasons, these two could realistically get 50, maybe even 60 points. And going down into the long term, Byfield does have 100-point potential as well. So it's crazy to me to take a look at how the Montreal Canadiens have been losing these games again and again and again. 2 separate 8-game losing streaks in one season. And think about the possibilities. Because the team, obviously, is the hometown draft team. So we have to think about it like this and think about what could happen. Because if you take a look at it down the line, who wouldn't want to see a Byfield or a Lafrenière setting up a Cole Caulfield in the slot? Ooh, that looks great. The sound of that pleases my ears very much. And we've only talked about 2 prospects here, and we're already 9 minutes in, so I was actually planning to talk about more prospects, but I don't want to go over the gameplay, so I think I'll just cap it off at Byfield and Lafrenière. Maybe market this video as a Lafrenière or Byfield video. But believe me, there's already a really good young core in the guys like Suzuki, and the guys like Kotkaniemi, and the guys like Caulfield, etc. But you draft a Lafrenière, you draft a Byfield, and automatically these guys become your most valuable players under 22. And it's not even close. So take that as you will if you are a Montreal Canadiens fan. I know the majority of people watching this video are Canadiens fans, so I know you probably are. So I want to hear what you think. What do you think about Lafrenière? What do you think about Byfield? Because I know Canadiens fans everywhere are really upset about the losses, and they're just praying to the hockey gods, pick me up now. I need Lafrenière or Byfield so bad. And as the Canadiens lose more and more games, their standings in the league continue to go down, 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 down. Down, 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 down. It gets me so down, 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 down. But that's just how it is for everybody, isn't it? Hope you enjoyed this video, Social Dash Ross 99, and bye.